Hello, welcome. So right now, I'm still kind of ill. I'm still kind of recovering, so I couldn't really record much this week. But now that I'm feeling better, I can again, but I still need a video out promptly. So what I'm going to do is a tier list. Now don't get too excited. This is not a Shin Megami Tensei games tier list. This is a Shin Megami Tensei Protagonists tier list. So I kind of found this while searching Tier Maker, and I thought it was an interesting idea. The list itself didn't have every single protagonist, so I had to add some. And right here you can see the kind of cropped images of two other characters who are actually in the list. That's just because I uploaded those pictures and didn't realize they'd be cropped, so I had to edit them. And that's basically why those two are here. It's also why we have the Shin Megami Tensei 5 protagonists, while also having the headshot of it here at the bottom as well. That's just because this is a fairly old tier list. The final thing to take note is that I have done a slightly different structure for the tiers, and I can see I didn't actually complete it. So up here at the top here, I have fantastic, followed by great, no strong feelings on, memorable, fine, and terrible. I just feel like those are just less ambiguous than S, A, B, C, and so forth. Uh, just because that can leave some things open to interpretation and can spark wars like, oh, you should have made this double S or triple S or whatever. Like, that's not really how a tier is supposed to work when you have sort of the creep like that, so I'm just going to be unambiguous with it. And I've also kind of grouped these together as well. That's just the last thing to take note of before we begin. And with that said, let's get started. And we're going to start out with the protagonist for not Shin Megami Tensei, but Megami Tensei. So Megami Tensei 1 and Megami Tensei 2. Um, And I'm going to put Megami Tensei 1's protagonist in no strong feelings on, and Megami Tensei 2's protagonist in just memorable. Actually, maybe I should actually switch those around. Of course, now it kind of contrasts the color I have. Of course, now it kind of contrasts the colors I've been going for. So let's just fix these. That's actually a pretty good shade of blue. So yeah. Uh, I'm not a big fan of either of these two very much. I do like the Megami Tensei 2's design slightly more, just because it's kind of more memorable. This one's a little more generic. Like, they're just not a very good start. The only thing I really have to say about Megami Tensei's one protagonist is that is just the novel protagonist. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but that's basically it. And I guess that's one of the reasons why he is kind of generic, because he is kind of, not very standout. And so that brings us at last to Shin Megami Tensei. Um, and we're going to start off with another memorable. I'm not a big fan of. Well, actually, I have a bit of mixed feelings on the design for Shin Megami Tensei 1. I think it actually, I think I will upgrade it to great, just because I think that it strides the line between generic but somehow memorable as the game progresses, really well. So at the beginning, he actually wears very generic clothing, and as the series progresses, he actually gets a slightly different design, which you can see right here. This is him with his cyberpunk armor. It's really 90s, it's really wiry, and it's at once very 90s and very futuristic, and I really like that. So yeah, I think it's worthy of being great. And finally, we have Shin Megami Tensei 2. Well, not finally, but you get what I mean. Which I'd also say is great. I really like this design. I really like long-haired boys. I just like that aesthetic really well. And I think that this is a better kind of that 90s cyberpunk aesthetic than what Shin Megami Tensei 1 was going for. Maybe not by much. It's just that this design has a lot more little details that really speak to me. In the clothes, in those visors, in the sword. I mean, this guy has a sword too, but you get the idea. I just really like it. And again, boy with long hair, I love that design aesthetic. And of course, that brings us to the Demi-Fiend. This is probably going to be controversial, but it's only going to go in great. I think this design is a bit overrated. I understand that this is very iconic, and for good reason. But I just never really vibed with the tattoos. I really don't like tattoos all that much. I like clothes a lot better. There's nothing wrong with the tattoos, and I really like that they are actually shamanic. Very tribal. And I also really like how he has this horn growing out of his back. That just makes him really memorable, but this just doesn't really convey in the design. Or rather, not the design, rather the body language here in this very iconic pose. He is very iconic, but I think that the franchise has just done better, in my opinion. And next up, we are going to go with Strange Journeys protagonist. This one, like, so this one's a bit odd because the guy underneath is just fine. I really don't like it, but the Demonica is much more memorable. So I'm actually a bit stuck on whether to put him in fine or memorable. Like, we barely see him without his mask in game, so I think that memorable is very fair. And next up, we're going to go with Shin Megami Tensei 4 Finn. This is the only one with a canon name to my knowledge. I'm a bit stuck on No Strong Feelings or memorable because he is memorable, but he's also just kind of fine. I do like the long hair. I like the ponytail. But the front hair just doesn't do much for me. Like, if it was hairstyle alone, this would be No Strong Feelings on, or even fine, because, like, it's not really that good of a mixture. But the samurai garb, that is significantly better. It's a lot like the Demonica in being very iconic to that game. So yeah, I think that upgrading it to memorable is very fair, if more for the clothes. And again, I really do like the clothes. I think that a lot of the artists really do have a talent at creating some really interesting and memorable garb. And this finally brings us to Shin Megami Tensei 4 Apocalypse, and this is going to be another great. I love this design. Like, I'm not a big fan of 4 Apocalypse, but I really do like the design of Nanashi here. I like the heavy use of green. I really like green as a color. I like the kind of mark. It's this very, it's kind of like a tattoo, but not really, because it is more supernatural. I mean, I guess the Demi-Fiend's tribal tattoos are also supernaturally induced. But I like that this is a lot more subtle. I like the hair a lot more. I think that's a very good hairstyle to sort of convey Nanashi as this more edgelord protagonist for those of us who like edgelords. And I just really like this design in general. And next up, we are going to go with the Shin Megami Tensei 5 protagonist. And I have 3 images here because he has 3 different forms in that game. Now, I am a very big critic when it comes to Shin Megami Tensei 5. I think that the original canon of creation is terrible, easily the worst game in the series. But the canon of vengeance is fantastic. But even before it came out, I loved this design. I think that the Nahobino design is fantastic. This is easily my favorite design that the franchise has ever had. I love it. I love the long hair. I like the pretty boy aesthetic. And really being able to Naruto run around the desert as an anime pretty boy with this long, elegantly flowing hair, that is just easily the best part of the game. Like, that's a low bar, but you get the idea. Especially when Vengeance came out and it was actually fun. The gameplay actually became fun in that game. So Nahobino is fantastic. His human form is a bit less so, but still worthy of great in my opinion. I like how you can clearly tell that this is the Nahobino, but now less divine, I guess I'd call him. And now we're going to go with the alternate Nahobino design, the Tsukuyomi Nahobino design. Now, this one I started out liking a little less. I didn't like the aesthetic as much. But it grew on me by the end. I do like the moon. I really like the sort of subtle lavender accents of this design to contrast the just elegant indigo of the Aogami one. So yeah, I think great is very fair. I am tempted to put it in fantastic, but I think that great is much better. And now we're going to move on to the DX2 designs. And both of these are just fine. So, Liberation DX2 has both an MC and a FemC. Neither of them are that good. They are very generic. And I do get that that is to some extent the point. They are supposed to be just the audience stand in, but I feel like other designs have managed that mixture, and that very difficult mixture, I might add, of being both generic and yet standout and iconic much better. Case in point, the Nahobino, Shin Megami Tensei 1 and 2, Nanashi, all of those manage that much better in my opinion. And now we're going to go with our first spin-off, which is Digital Devil Saga. And I'm going to be honest, I really hate this design. Like, I love Digital Devil Saga, but I just don't like the protagonist Surf's design. Like, I'm not a fan of gray hair in this kind of generic bowl cut. Like, that just reeks of old man to me. I mean, the uniform is actually pretty good. I love the splash of orange, the tribal color, to the grays and browns, but I didn't really like how it looked on Surf. Like, he doesn't, like, I understand this is sort of meant to be the generic, but he came across as a bit too generic soldier when he's supposed to be the leader, and I just did not like that about it. And next off is going to be, I believe, the Gite Megami Tensei design. Yes, this is Gite Megami Tensei. Um, so this one is memorable, but falls short of being great to me. I don't think it's bad. I just don't think it's that good. And now we're going to go on to Last Bible. So Last Bible 1's protagonist is L, and this guy, this guy is pretty bad. I'll be frank. I don't like how the colors come together. That's my biggest complaint, is that the colors kind of clash. I mean, in theory, they shouldn't. But, this scarf here does not go with his hair. The red cape should really complement the green pants and black shirt, but it just doesn't for some reason. And it really contrasts with his scarf as well. He's just not a very good design. And another thing that really brings this design down is that it feels kind of edgy 90s cyberpunk, or at least edgy modern, when Last Bible is supposed to take place in a generic fantasy. So that does bring it down. The other Last Bible designs I think are a bit better. Last Bible 2 and 3's protagonists both go in fine, I'd say. These have a lot of the same problems, but a little less so. And they also have a bit of more to them that allow them to kind of stand out, or at least warm me up to them a bit better. I love the spiky hair for Last Bible 2's protagonist, for example. I think it really suits him, even if the red and orange don't really complement each other all that well. And then you have not Shin Megami Tensei, Last Bible 3's protagonist, who I think is also likewise capable of being a better design. I feel like this is the best Last Bible design, not really in aesthetic. I actually think that Last Bible 2's outweighs him in personality through that spiky hair and more interesting clothing choices, even if I'm not the biggest fan of the, again, red and orange. But I think that this one manages to get the least wrong, and that's why I think it is the best objectively. But again, I just think these two are kind of fine. And now we're going to have this little deformed guy, no strong feelings on. I believe this is Last Bible Special. Last Bible Special or another Bible, I can't remember which. And it has a very deformed design, a very, not really deformed, more very stylized design. He kind of reminds me of Toriko with the blue hair and orange clothing. Um, and this one I have no strong feelings on because there's nothing specifically wrong, but there's nothing especially interesting about this design for me either. And now we're going to have the protagonist for whichever the other one was. Again, either Last Bible Special or Another Bible. I'm not sure which, but I think this is Another Bible. Um, and this one is very generic as well. I'm going to go with no strong feelings for. Uh, the blonde hair and white tunic don't do anything for me. The only thing that really stops it from being just fine or terrible, even, is that this feels more fantastical and thus more fitting for Last Bible than the more modern clothes of the other ones. I mean, I guess that could be a strength of Last Bible. I have not played the games. But on their own and in isolation, they just feel a bit at odds with that idea. The idea of a Shin Megami Tensei game set in a more traditional fantasy, but with modern clothes. I don't feel like that really works all that well. And now for the final Last Bible design, the protagonist for Last Bible New Testament. Now, New Testament is a trilogy. It is the mobile games that were recently released on Steam. Well, not recently. They were released back in, I want to say the anniversary or close to. The Persona anniversary, I mean, so like 5 years ago. I don't think I covered it when it was released, but I did notice that it happened. Or at least the announcement. And this one, this one is much better than I want to put it on fine. Because I do have feelings on this, and they are positive, but they aren't that positive. Maybe I should have had some sort of good ranking in between great and memorable now that I'm thinking of it, and the New Testament protagonist would definitely have gone there. I don't love this design, but I really like it. I think it has enough to it to make it memorable in the right ways. And yeah, actually, memorable. Memorable is actually pretty good. I'll go with memorable because it is kind of there, and and I do think that while it is fine, it's also memorable in the right ways, especially with the red. I really like red as a color, especially if used well, and I think that it contrasts the pants and shirt a lot more than the other Last Bible designs. And I also really like how it complements the brown for his harness for his sword and his boots as well. Like, I just think that this was a better use of color, and because of it, it is much more memorable and much more iconic. And maybe iconic's not the right word because New Testament is a very, like, it's an obscure mobile game, but I feel like if it wasn't so obscure, this would be more iconic than it is because of that elegant red cloak and the way that it contrasts the clothes. I really like it. And again, like, this feels like it is more the clothing of someone in a fantasy versus someone in a modern setting. And now moving on, we're going to go with the Majin Tensei protagonists. So Majin Tensei 1, this is just a fine design. I don't have too many strong feelings on it, but I feel like everything in No Strong Feelings is better, and this really doesn't surpass really anything. It's not really bland in the way that the DX2 designs are, but it doesn't feel particularly edgy in the right way, in the way that the Last Bible 3 and 2's protagonists do. So I think that fine is very fair. A bit better, but likewise somewhat fine, is Majin Tensei 2's protagonist. I don't like the mixture of blue and green here, even though both those colors should work really well in isolation. They just don't really work together to me. And I don't really have anything beyond that to say on the rest of his design. He's kind of looming, he's kind of bulky, which is a bit refreshing as a different take on the main protagonist, but not much else. And finally, we have Last Bible Aronde's protagonist, which is someone Miroku. His last name is Miroku. And this one is great. I love the red trench coat. This is kind of a cropped image, so you don't really get the full majesty, but I really like this design. Like, again, I really like the use of the color red. If you've ever seen Inuyasha, you will know that that red kimono he wears is just instantly attention-grabbing and instantly steals the show away from Kagome as the protagonist into him as the protagonist. And I feel like that is very much accomplished in the designs for both Majin Tensei Ronde, and in Last Bible New Testament's protagonists. And yeah, I really like this. I think that alone makes it memorable. But there are a few other subtle aspects to the design as well. I like how it contrasts the skin color, the pants, and the hair as well, and the shirt. Like, it's just a really solid design. I think that it's a very underrated one in the community, quite frankly. And I think it's great. So now we're going to go with the Jack Bros designs. Now, these are the Jack Bro designs, but I am going to be upfront. I like the Shin Megami Tensei designs a lot more. These are very square and very bulky. And rather than go in order, I'm just going to go from my least favorite to favorite. So first off is terrible, and that is going to be Pixie. I really hate this design. I think it's pretty bad. It's clearly trying to ape Shin Megami Tensei's Pixie, but it kind of lacks the charm. There's nothing really all that great about it. Like, the red is very attention-grabbing, as red is generally, but I don't think that it serves her particularly well. Like, she is a secret character who you unlock in New Game Plus, so it's not really very fitting for her. And while the red does contrast her wings and hair nicely, it should really grab me the way that it should. And now we're going to go with Jack Frost. This is probably going to be pretty controversial. But I don't think this is Jack Frost's best incarnation. Like, I much prefer the Jack Frost in mainline SMT. Like, he's just much more cuddly there. I would not mind giving him a hug, even if he'd probably kill me. Because that's his compendium entry. But this design is just Jack Frost chibi, and I don't think it works particularly well. I think that Jack-O-Lanterns works a bit better, but I still think that it's just fine. I mean, I guess both of these are memorable for the stylization. But I think that Jack-O-Lantern, sorry. I think that this posing does him justice a bit more than Jack Frost. And I think that works pretty well in his favor. And finally, we get to the only one of the Jack Bros who I think this design actually works pretty well with, and that is Jack the Ripper. I still prefer his mainline design, but this one is pretty fine. Or actually a bit more than fine. I think that this really works to his advantage because he manages to get that mix of menacing and chibi down pretty well. I really like this design. So yeah, memorable. I think that's fair. And now we have the Gite Megami Tensei protagonist. Now, this list actually came with Gite Megami Tensei's main protagonist, but it did not include the FemC variant. And much like with Liberation DX2, both of these are just fine. I don't have much to say beyond them. Like, they are just kind of fine. They just have the only thing that I really like more about them is that they have a certain retro style to them. And that makes them slightly more memorable than DX2, but not by much. And now we're going to go into Devil Children. First of all, we're going to go with Red Book's protagonist, who is a generic girl, quite frankly. I like the use of colors. I like how the pink shirt and how it contrasts with the yellow creamy colored vest, blob of red at the neck, and the white skirt. Like, color is something I think this one really does well. Much better than the Black Book protagonist. I actually think this is the best design. I think that this deserves memorable, actually. Yeah, Red Book's protagonist deserves memorable. I feel like her generic hair is bad. It's not that good, and I'm not a big fan of the face, but I do like the clothes quite a bit. On the opposite end of a spectrum is Black Book, which I think is just fine. Like, he feels like he is just the edgy rival, and maybe that is the point to the extent. But again, gray hair in a kid, I do not like that. Gray hair is something that old people have, not young people. And now we go to the White Book protagonist. Now, this is another one that I feel is fine. Um, I like the red. Red is very attention grabbing again. And I do like how it goes with brown, but I don't think that this works quite to the same extent that the New Testament protagonist does. Mostly because there's a lot more brown. Both the shirt, the sleeves of the t-shirt, and the hair are brown. And I think that does take away from the impact of the red. That brings it down a bit, and I just don't really like this design beyond. He feels very generic kids anime protagonist. That's just what he feels like. Like, this is to some extent present in the protagonist of Red Book, Black Book, and White Book, but I feel that White Book is that at its worst. And now we get to the protagonist for Light and Dark, and this is where things get a bit weird. So these two are the protagonists for most of the Devil Children series, actually. It isn't just Light Book and Dark Book, it is also Fire Book, Ice Book, Messiah Rider, and also Puzzle the Core, if I'm not mistaken. And this guy here, he has sort of the same problem as the White Book design. In fact, it feels like he kind of retreads the same idea, but somehow manages to be even more generic. Like, the iconic backwards cap of Ash Ketchum is the biggest giveaway that this is just kind of aping other aesthetics and not really doing anything to it. But I do like the Dark Book protagonist a bit better. I'd say that he is memorable. I'd say the large amount of blues that they don't really go together all that well. But I do think that this is unique enough to be memorable, to warrant a memorable. And now this brings us to the Puzzle Rider protagonist. Puzzle Rider or Puzzle Call. No. I'm not. No, I'm sorry. I was confused. This is the Card Summoner protagonist. And I don't really have any strong feelings on this. I don't like the blues. I don't think that the red. I think that the red and blues mix together well enough, but it just doesn't invoke too strong of a reaction from me. Not even in the generic sense. And this brings us to one of my favorite spin-offs, Devil Survivor. So first off, we have Devil Survivor 1. This protagonist definitely gives me the 2000s edge that the Persona 3 protagonist gives off, but not as well in my opinion. But I really like this design regardless. I like the loose-fitting black shirt. I like the kind of red cord that he has in his official artwork. And I like the headphones. There are a lot of little things to this design that I think work quite well, but nothing that would extend it to great, in my opinion. And now we have the Devil Survivor 2 protagonist design. So, just as a quick note, I love how this is a very strong contrast to the design of Devil Survivor 1. I like the white shirt to black shirt, the blue pants to red pants, and I also really like the hoodie. Um, I love this hoodie. I wish there was more with him. I love the rabbit ear hoodie thing. It's so unique and so ridiculous, yet he manages to pull it off. I genuinely wish there was more art with him wearing his rabbit eared hoodie. And I think this deserves great. This just deserves great for me. He manages to just pull ahead of the Devil Survivor 1 protagonist. And That can be said to a lot of things of Devil Survivor 2, honestly, in my opinion. I do prefer it over Devil Survivor 1, the imperfect Trailblazer, but having a bit more edge to it than Devil Survivor 2, which was more refined, but a lot less interesting and experimental. Uh, and I think that does reflect the protagonists as well. And this at last brings us to Devil Summoner. So this may have been the thing that I feel most people were pretty interested in, if not Persona. And Devil Summoner's protagonist is easily memorable. He has this very Arsène Lupin, the third type of quality to him by design. He just oozes personality through the body language. I love the Kyoji Kuzunoha kind of smugness he exudes through that body language, even if he's supposed to be a silent protagonist. I can never really tell if this is supposed to be Kyoji Kuzunoha or you as Kyoji Kuzunoha when you take that title in the game. And now we're gonna go with Devil Summoner Soul Hacker's protagonist. Now this is a weird thing for me because like he's not the protagonist, Namisa is the protagonist, and I like Namisa is either great or memorable. Like she's kind of an interesting thing because I think she's very iconic in a lot of the right ways. Um, and I think she's very close to great, but I just like a lot of other things much better, and I don't think that she is, the best. Best looking, especially with the 3DS artwork. I much prefer her original console artwork. It was just a lot more interesting. And this is what that artwork actually is, by the way, in case you are wondering. I took that artwork instead of the 3DS one. But back to the actual not the actual protagonist. Nemesis is the protagonist. Like she steals the show hands down. But this guy is supposed to be your POV. He's supposed to be you in the game, and I just have no strong feelings on him. Like beyond the fact that he just doesn't register as the protagonist, he just doesn't really register as the protagonist. There's not much else to say. And while I really like the green coat, that's the extent of what I have to say on him, quite frankly. And this brings us to Raido Kuzunoha. This is going to be... So this is the first character in quite a while that I am tempted to put in Fantastic. I know that he is basically just wearing a school uniform, but I really like the design. I also like how he has personally customized it with a cloak to hide his sword, his guns, his summoning stuff. I think that this does deserve Fantastic. Like, this is memorable, it is iconic, and I really like the design. Like, I'm not the biggest fan of sideburns usually, but, like, Raido makes them work. Yeah, just fantastic. I don't see any reason not to put him in Fantastic, quite frankly. And now we get to Ringo. I mean, Soul Hackers 2 is not really a devil summoning game. You don't summon demons, you equip demons. I guess she's a good kind of transition between Devil Summoner and Persona in that respect. And I was saving Persona for last, so here we are. Ringo is fine. Her neon coat is memorable, but I just don't really like her design all that much. I think that her, outfit beyond her jacket is just kind of bland. I'm not the biggest fan of her shoes, and I'm not the biggest fan of her hair either. She's instantly memorable, but I much preferred Fig's design. I think that the purple worked a lot better with her outfit than Ringo's green did. Moving on, we now have the Shin Megami Tensei If protagonist. Now, I did most of Shin Megami Tensei earlier, but I figured that I should save If for to do with Persona, and I wanted to do Persona last, so That's why if is being done now. So first of all, main protagonist is fine. Female protagonist, much better. Like, I think that while both of these have a lot of similarities, there's just so much that makes the female protagonist just stand out more. I like her, but I like that she actually has body language in her official artwork, whereas the protagonist just doesn't. I mean, that might be good to some extent, but these sort of. But I feel that that doesn't really work in these more character artwork profiles, which should communicate at least an appeal, and this guy just doesn't. Whereas, even other silent protagonists, they do through just a very specific pose. Shin Megami Tensei 1, Shin Megami Tensei 2, Nocturne, Shin Megami Tensei 5 is literally just a protagonist holding a book, and they all are much more appealing to look at than the protagonist of If. And while the femc is basically just her hands on her hips, I think it works quite well. I think that there's enough to her design that just makes it different. And, like, I can really see why she is the canon protagonist. That's the thing about If. She is the actual canon protagonist. And now we're going to go on to Persona at last. This is probably what most people are. Oh, I just realized I forgot the Persona 5 the Phantom X protagonist. I forgot about him. Yeah, I mean, he's not here, but I'll put him in memorable. Like, he is no Joker. He's no Joker, but he's fine beyond, and his Phantom Thief attire is pretty good. So yeah, memorable. He'll go in memorable. And now we're going to go to Persona 1. Yeah, so Persona 1's protagonist is just the boy with an earring. And I think that his face, hair, and earring they boost him from bland to memorable to me. And now we have Tatsuya. Tatsuya's design, Tatsuya, I don't really have any strong feelings on. Like, I have not played Persona 2, so that might play a part. But this design just doesn't do much for me. It's kind of generic and not in a particularly interesting way at that. And Maya, the protagonist of Eternal Punishment, she's memorable, but I feel like there are much better outfits than hers. I feel like every other memorable is actually a bit more than her, with the maybe exception of the protagonist for Persona 1 and Shin Megami Tensei If. And now we get to Persona 3. So this is a bit of an inverse with Shin Megami Tensei If, but Persona 3's MC, fantastic. And Femc, is just fine. Oh, wrong thing. So yeah, the Femc is just fine, and MC is fantastic, and I'm going to tell you why. So much like Devil Survivor 1's protagonist, this protagonist just oozes that 2000s edge that I really love. Like, this is probably the best part of his design, is that he's just this, like, edgy 2000s protagonist, and I love this design quite a bit. Like, even though Persona 3 is my least favorite Persona game, I love the aesthetic, and I love this protagonist. And I just don't think that the Femc captures the same thing. Like, she is, like, softer, probably by design, mind you, but I don't think that it captured the tone and appeal of the game to the same extent. There's nothing wrong with her design, she is just fine. And with that said, we're going to go for Persona 4's protagonist, which is terrible. Again, I really hate the gray hair on a teenager feel. Like, it doesn't make him feel unique, it just makes him feel old. Especially when he's trying to be a high school student, and I just don't think that really fits with it. Kind of like the Femc, but a little worse. He just does not suit the aesthetic of Persona 4, and I'm sorry, that's just it. I really hate this design. His glasses do nothing as well, and while he does have body language, it's just not very good. Persona 4 is my favorite Persona game, and I just do not like the protagonist. In fact, one of the reasons why I actually put off playing Persona 4 was just because I really hated how the protagonist looked. He was just this off-putting factor on Persona 4 for years. Until Persona 5 came out and I tried that and got to that. Speaking of which, Persona 5's protagonist. Now, I will put his uniform in no strong feelings on, his civilian look. And I say that because I think that Persona 5 has a great design, and I would put him in fantastic if this were his Phantom Thief design. I think that his Phantom Thief is a fantastic one. It manages to be really impactful. Black with those red gloves, blood on his hands to represent the fact that he committed a crime and is being judged by society for it. But it's not his Phantom Thief attire that's here, it's his civilian clothing, which is a bit less. Like, his school uniform is memorable, but I think that the rest of his design, his shaggy hair, the red buttons on his black blazer, I think that all of that does elevate it to great. And so yeah, that is the tier list, minus the protagonist of P5X, whom I kind of forgot about. Actually, Aegis should be here because she is the protagonist of the episode Aegis/The Answer. And I would put her in memorable. I'm not the biggest fan of robots and robot designs. But I do think that Aegis is, like, good enough to elevate her beyond. Like, and while I prefer the protagonist design, I do like Aegis quite a bit. So, she'd go in either memorable or great. And so, yeah, that'll do it for the video. Do you agree or disagree? What would your list be? Did I leave out any other protagonists by mistake? Because, like, this is a pretty major series. But I only counted the game protagonists, so keep that in mind if you're wondering why some of the protagonists in the novels or some of the manga are absent. That's going to do it for this video. On screen right now are some recommendations, and I will see you next week. Hopefully I will be fully over my cold by then, and I can make the videos that I really want to make.